Hello Canada, welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias Tagai. Well, I'm running a little late here. Actually got hit by 3 different lightning storms went through, and then we had 2 tornado warnings. Some nasty weather, definitely some nasty weather. It's not climate change, it's just we've got really good technology that can kind of see things now that we never had before. So Carney today said he's going to finally put some counter tariffs on. We're going to go over his presser in a little bit. First, I'm going to start off with just some kind of outlandish stories, typical things you know, it's Canada, so you have to believe it because it doesn't really happen anywhere else like it happens here. We got the helicopters that are flying around protecting our borders are actually not even safe enough to be in the skies, but it's okay because if you're a government friend, they'll permit you to do it, but everybody else has to abide by laws. We've got the WHO wanting Canada to up the taxes on certain products to help fund the lack of money now coming in through the States. You just can't make this stuff up. We're going to talk a little bit about Tariffs too and put a little bit of reality to who this evil guy really is. The tax on churches is back. This is something I warned about, so I always urge, and I know I say it lots during the show, but please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. There's a lot of churches, a lot of people of faith, deep ties to their religion and their beliefs. They're all going to be losing their charitable status and going to be getting taxed hardcore. It totally goes against our charter and actually a constitutional writ that's well over 400 years old on the freedom of churches and giving them designations in order for them to achieve the good things that all faith organizations do. But you know, when you have a fascist government, they don't care about your rights. They don't care about religion. They don't care about you. They don't care. All they care about is you following their ideology, and they will force you, no matter what, to do it, or they will punish you. And then we've got this goofball who threw some paint on a very expensive painting in Montreal. And then like I said, we'll tie into Carney. So let's just kind of drop right into this helicopter story. This is actually kind of huge. So Ottawa's in a serious breach of in allowing used choppers to patrol the border. The industry says Blackhawks aren't ideal for patrolling borders, one analyst says, because they're expensive to operate and have limited range. But don't worry, that's the tip of the iceberg. That's just a mild complaint. The reality of the situation. So Canada's helicopter industry is charging the federal government with a serious breach in following the RCMP to patrol the Canada-US border with antiquated military helicopters that don't meet the government's own safety regulations. The second-hand helicopters purchased on the open market by private Canadian operators, who were then hired by the RCMP, were granted highly unusual special exemptions by Transport Canada. Documents show that the industry is accusing the federal government of breaking its own rules by allowing these choppers that don't meet Canadian safety standards and aren't supposed to carry passengers or even fly over developed areas. This is scary. It's not even something that should be considered, said Trevor Mitchell, Chief Executive of the Helicopter Association of Canada, about the government's decision to provide special exemptions. Why do some have to follow the rules and some don't? Welcome to liberal Canada. Welcome to fascist Canada. Yeah, elbows up, everybody. For at least the last 3 years, the RCMP has been relying on a small number of private contractors to help patrol the border in search of illegal immigrants. Drug smugglers and other illicit activities. These contractors included 2 based in Ontario, which have been using up to 4 Black Hawk helicopters that were purchased on a second-hand market from the U.S. military decided to update much of its own fleet. According to the government's Canadian Civil Aircraft Register, the second-hand Sikorsky Blackhawks are each at least 40 years old and were imported between 2022 and last year. The special exemptions from Transport Canada, the industry says, in a series of letters to senior government officials, allowed them to do non-military jobs in Canadian airspace. But on March 20th, the Transport Minister, Krista Freeland, Mitchell said that even the conditions attached to the exemptions, such as not being allowed to carry passengers or fly over developed areas, have not been followed. We urge you to direct your department to ensure the safety restrictions attached to these aircraft are strictly enforced for the balance of the RCMP's contract, and that the force be urged to select a certified aircraft before the contract expires. Hear this, ready? The contract's worth an estimated $16 million so far, set to expire on June 30th. Like, hey man, rules for me, or rules for thee, but not for me, I guess, eh? Nothing new in a fascist country. So, the WHO calls for Canada to hike sin taxes to cover Trump funding gap. They want us to raise the taxes on alcohol, sugar, and tobacco to make up for the foreign aid cuts triggered by the U.S. President Donald Trump. So General Tedros, blah, 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 urged governments to impose new sin taxes on unhealthy products immediately. The goal, he said, is to offset the collapse in global health aid caused by Trump's decision to pull U.S. funding from the WHO. So, I mean, we already give these guys enough money, but let's just, a lot of people don't know this. Okay, so Tedros, this guy is an absolute loser, okay? And that's putting it really nice. He was involved in genociding people, like little tribes, little warring tribes that were against the evil that his party had become. They were actually even designated on the terrorist list. So, and anybody who wants to say, oh, that's been debunked, then you ask this Nobel Peace Prize nominee who actually took it all the way up as high as he could and still hasn't seen any action on it. This is how corrupt all the highest levels of these organizations are. They protect each other. They don't care about you. We need systematic change. We need some serious change. So an American economist, David Steinman, accused the WHO chief Tedros of being a crucial decision maker who directed Ethiopia's security forces' actions from 2013 to 2015. He accused Tedros of being one of 3 individuals who were in charge of the security services over that period during which the killing and torturing of Ethiopians took place. Raised in Tigray, he also served as Ethiopia's health minister from 2005 to 2012 before being elected to the WHO director in 2017. Steinman, who was nominated for the 2019 Nobel Peace Prize, lodged a complaint calling for Tedros to be prosecuted for genocide at the International Criminal Court in The Hague. He's claimed that Tedros was a crucial decision maker in relation to security service actions that included killing, arbitrarily detaining, and torturing Ethiopians. Mr. Steinman also alleged that the WHO chief oversaw the killing and causing serious bodily harm and mental harm to members of the Amhara, Konso, Oromo, and Somali tribes with intent to destroy these tribes in whole or in part. This guy, he's evil. It's only befitting that somebody who wants to genocide people would be sitting on, would be the general of the WHO. Because this is what they tried to do during the Wuhan episode. Moving along. This is an article I'll post in there as well, right from Africa News, about the Tigray conflict. Ethiopian lists TPLF as a terrorist group. And you can go ahead and you can read it all off. It's got some pretty cool names and stuff like that in there. And then, of course, you got to watch. If you go to Wikipedia, there's a lot. It's verbatim. It's all crap, right? People can lock out, edit, and create their own. You really got to watch. You really got to watch what you read on Wikipedia and all the rest of that stuff. So, Sask today threw this article up. And this is, I brought this up, and I mean, this is something that really you should be printing off the documents, which I will attach here as well, the government document right here, so you don't have to go searching for it. And it pretty much explains how the government doesn't care about your religious freedoms or rights, and thinks that your religion is a terrorist organization for being pro-life. So you're not going to get any charitable, non-charitable tax exemptions. They're coming for your churches. They want to close it down. This is the new religion is carbon, people. All hail that carbon is bad. That's the new religion. That's the new fascist army religion. All hail carbon bad. Carbon bad. Anyways, proposed charitable status changes spark debate. A recent parliamentary report has ignited debate over charitable status regulations in Canada, with faith-based and pro-life organizations at the center of the discussion. The Standing Committee on Finance's pre-budget consultations in advance of the 2025 budget report includes 2 recommendations that have drawn criticism from religious and pro-life groups. Recommendation 429 calls for the government to no longer provide charitable status to anti-abortion organizations. Recommended 430 urges amendments to the Income Tax Act that would remove the privileged status of advancement of religion as a charitable purpose. Coming for your churches, they're coming for your churches' organizations. They are going to try to bankrupt all faith organizations. This isn't just Catholic. This is all of them. All of them. If you are pro-life, so just start naming them off. Jewish, Buddhist, Christian, Protestant, go ahead, Muslim. I mean, you can just keep on going. All pro-life. No religion for you. Religion bad. This government wants all religions abolished. There will be one religion. Climate religion. Anyways, urge you to like, share, and subscribe. And like I said, put the documents on here, so I put all my information. I'm the only guy. They say there's other people that do this, but I still haven't found any. I put all the information in the description so that you have access to it. And please go ahead. You can print them off, download it, print it off. And when you go to your church, whatever religion you're in, print off a whole pile of them and set them aside so that people can walk by and they can read them and they can realize how evil this fascist government is. The new Liberal Party, it's not the Liberal Party of the past, people. They've been completely taken over. These people are completely psychotic. So, I'm going to show you, and I'm going to turn the volume down because the guy's yelling in French, and I will read off what he is saying. This is, you want to see dumb people? This is dumb people. Oh, what happened here? There we go. So all these fires, 83 are out of control. We need a protection agency against climate disasters. Financed by the billionaire tax. There are too many people here. There are too many people who are dying. Tens of thousands of people have lost their home. They are losing all their belongings. We can't stop here. If Canada doesn't do much, soon we will all be dying. There will be more art. Art is alive. You can come and see me on the 3rd floor, the cop says. Then we'll all go. Cop says it again. We need to protect the living. This painting crossed the entire Atlantic. It came from Italy. Italy, which is burning. And we brought it here to Canada, which is also on fire. It's ridiculous. It's abnormal. This guy is ridiculous and abnormal. And his 2 buddies that are filming, who all got arrested, thank God. And by the way, 97% of the fires are human caused. 67 proven to be a whole pile where they know it is human caused, and they're saying it could be from broken glass shards working as magnifying glasses, people who are out and quadding, ATVs and motorcycles and stuff that could possibly be starting it. And then, of course, there's the human, they call it an accident factor, which I call it a stupidity factor, when they leave their fires burning and, pack up their camp and drive away, or just leave their campfire blazing away while they take off to the lake or go decide to do something. It's just ridiculous. Other than that, 3% they're saying are caused by lightning. There's no global climate change causing the fires. It's called stupidity. People like this are the ones who are out there lighting fires because they don't have anything up here. Anyways, moving on. This is CBC Watcher. I'm a big fan of his on X. Great account. These guys are professional at busting the propaganda arm, CBC. Just the one, CBC. That's kind of what they dedicate this channel to. But they also post a lot of really cool information. And this one, I had to show you. This is absolutely Awesome. So boom, computer scientist confirms CBC has slanted coverage of the election. Using innovative technological tools, a Regina computer scientist examined CBC Radio Canada's 2025 election coverage. His investigation highlights unequal and impartial treatment of the major parties. No surprise to my viewers, but if you're new, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And hello! So, I'm not an enemy of Radio Canada, but I'm very critical of what the state-owned corporation has become. The overbidding of public funding and partisan bias add yet another layer to my criticism. Data from CBC, the public broadcaster's English language counterpart, paints an even starker picture. Of the 240 articles analyzed, half, so 118, contained a clear bias in favor of or against a leader. Mark Carney emerges as the clear favorite with 85 positively biased articles, compared to only 27 negatively biased ones, a ratio of 3.5 to 1 in favor of Mark. On the other hand, Pierre Poilievre is systematically disadvantaged. 78 articles with a negative tone against 17 with a positive tone, i.e. a ratio of 4.5 negatives for one positive. That's a huge difference. Huge difference. 7.15% difference. And if you actually carry that number and work it pro to negative, it works out to being a lot higher than that. These figures could perhaps be put into perspective if CBC Radio Canada did not loudly assert its fundamental principles as accuracy, fairness, balance, impartiality, and integrity. Right. These commitments enshrined at the very heart of their mandates as public broadcasters form the basis of the trust that citizens are entitled to place in an entity financed by public funds. And don't forget, this is why the Liberal Party wants to put this in legislation and stop any other party from being able to remove the funding to stop this bias reporting. We got to defund. The government should never. I study history. I study propaganda. I've been doing it for decades. The worst thing any country can do is allow the government to pay media. Propaganda is the most powerful strong arm of a fascist, socialist, or a communist country. This is the first thing they take, because if they can control the media, they can control the masses. Thank you, CBC Watch, for putting that out. That was awesome. One more thing before we get to Carney. I just want to make sure everybody out there gets their dose of reality, and who better to do it than Franco from the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Let's hear it.
The government borrowing tens of billions of dollars every year, saddling your kids and grandkids with a huge debt bill, is unacceptable. Now, folks, we just got the Parliamentary Budget Officer's, let's say, budget update, and the numbers are not good, okay? So we don't have a budget. This is the best we got, and the PBO is projecting a $46 billion deficit for the last budget year, okay? Borrowing $46 billion from Ottawa. That is unaffordable and it's unacceptable. Now let's look at what that means, okay? Massive deficits mean interest charges are soaring. Interest charges on the federal debt cost taxpayers $54 billion in 2024. Okay, so let's put that into perspective. That means debt interest charges are costing you more than $1 billion every single week. Well, what does that mean? The cost of building a brand new hospital is like $1 billion. So we are losing out on a hospital every single week because the federal government is wasting money on interest charges. Now let's go further into detail here, okay? So $54 billion on interest charges in 2024. Well, guess what? The federal government spent $52 billion through the Canada Health Transfer. That means the federal government is wasting more money on interest charges on the debt than what it's sending to the provinces in healthcare transfers. One more little comparison. Welcome to Canada, folks. where every single dollar you pay in federal sales tax is going to pay interest charges on the debt. This is getting crazy, okay? And as bad as things are now, a separate PBO report shows that if the government doesn't reverse course on its out-of-control spending, things are going to get even worse. The PBO has also projected that interest charges on the debt will reach $70 billion. $70 billion by 2029. So what has to happen? Well, Prime Minister Mark Carney has to reverse course and stop the debt-fueled spending spree. Here's just a couple ideas of how to get the books back under control. First,
and he won't. He won't. Because he needs to spend your taxpayer dollars so that he can build and subsidize all of these crappy new green things that they're forcing down everybody's throats, so his shareholders and himself can make piles and piles of money. And then when Canada's bankrupt, they just walk in and pick up the pieces. Wake up. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. People have to hear this. I'm sure there probably isn't a single Liberal voter who even knows who the Canadian Taxpayer Federation is. Because there is no way, if you were watching Franco or what the CTF has been doing for the last, I don't know how long, like decade or more, they would ever vote for a party that spends as much money as this Liberal Party spends. They spent more money in 10 years. Here's the stats. They've broken more laws, more ethic violations, lost more money. What else was there? There was a whole pile of them. More corruption, broke the highest laws, broke the most laws, broke the most ethic violations, spent the most money, caused the most severe economic crisis, and highest suicide, highest homelessness, highest all, and the guy could just keep on going, than all other prime ministers combined. Think about that. Think carefully about that. How can we fix it, Franco?
First of all, you got to do the little things right, okay? Stop the pay raises that members of parliament give themselves every single year. Maybe don't spend $8 million building a barn at the Governor General's estate. Then you got to do the big things right, okay? And the biggest cost explosion that we have seen is the bureaucracy. You are now paying for 99,000 more federal bureaucrats today than what you did a decade ago. In fact, over the decade, the cost of the bureaucracy has gone up 73%. So enough is enough. Canadians need a budget, open up the books. Canadians need the federal government to cut spending, and we need you to stop the debt-fueled spending spree. Because borrowing tens of billions of dollars every single year, interest charges costing taxpayers more than $1 billion every single week, that's unaffordable and it's unacceptable.
$1 billion, over $1 billion a week, and it's only climbing. Every dollar they spend, we don't have. We're broke. The Liberal Party, the new Liberal Party, broke Canada on every single fundamental level. They've bankrupted us, broke every damn thing they've ever put their eyes, ears, or finger on. Hell, if they mention it, it'll be broken. That's how bad this party is. Elbows up. Elbows up. Well, let's get down to this goofball. Finally, he's going to do something because he's under major political pressure. Because everybody figured out he still hasn't done what he said he was promised to do. None of it. He hasn't done any of it. All he's done is put tariffs on a little wee bit of food coming up from the States so that it stopped the when he removed the carbon tax. That's exactly when he had slipped these in. They kind of took form 2-3 days before. Then he eliminated the carbon tax. And then all of a sudden, people didn't see the price down that should have happened. Remember, that's because he has a 25% tariff on American foods. And it's certain foods. It's the stuff people buy every day. It's not the Targeted. Wah! He did it on purpose. That's how you know a party is evil, people. Where's all the big, I'm retaliating, States is gonna feel it, we're gonna win. Right.
Now, on Monday morning, I, with colleagues, met with President Trump to discuss international priorities as part of the G7, but also to further negotiate a new economic and security partnership between Canada and the United States. And as we've said repeatedly, we'll take all the time we need to get the best deal for Canada, but no longer. And seeing progress that's been made, President Trump and I agreed to pursue negotiations towards a deal within the coming 30 days. We'll continue these negotiations, of course, in good faith. In parallel, we must reinforce our strength at home and safeguard Canadian workers and businesses from the unjust U.S. tariffs that exist at present.
Hey, Melanie, you're looking a little flush. Were you in the vodka? Two things there, Melanie. First, fix the buttons. I think you missed one. You're a little offset. And second, maybe do the rest of them up and quit flirting with people. Like, wow. Children. We have children. We have children in our parliament. Unbelievable.
And that's why we're announcing that Canada will be
She looks shit-faced. Pardon my French.
Introducing a series of countermeasures to protect Canadian steel and aluminum workers and producers. And there's several, and I'm going to list them. First, Canada will adjust its existing counter tariffs on U.S. steel and aluminum products on the 21st of July, at the end of that 30-day period, in other words. We're going to adjust them to levels consistent with the progress that's made at that point on the broader trading arrangements with the United States.
Oh, so you mean mainstream's lying when they're saying, oh, he's announced counter tariffs. Listen to the dates. Listen to the dates. This is... He probably told Trump this. This is probably another little insider that he's doing. Telling you one thing when he's actually saying to something, kissing Trump's butt while doing something different. We're still waiting. Where's the elbows up? Where's the retaliatory tariffs? Where they're going to suffer pain? Where is it? Where is it?
Secondly, we will implement reciprocal procurement rules, ensuring that only Canadian producers and producers from trading partners that provide Canada with tariff-free reciprocal access through trade agreements can compete for federal government procurement of steel and aluminum. Troisièmement.
Right. What happened to... This was during the election, people.
We are fighting unjustified U.S. tariffs, including those on steel and autos with counter tariffs of our own. And those...
So on the bottom, I'll read this here. After Trump's tariff U-turn, Canadian PM vows to impose maximum pain on the U.S.
Those on steel and autos with counter tariffs of our own.
Carney claimed to impose counter tariffs on unjustified U.S. tariffs. Everybody remembers him screaming and yelling, Trump's the enemy. We got it. No more America. We're done. The trade is gone as we've known it. We're going to completely shut down the states. We're going to win the war.
And those are designed to cause maximum pain in the United States, but have only a minimal impact here in Canada.
The move comes after Trump imposed a 90-day pause on tariffs imposed.
We are protecting our workers and businesses because we're using
Except for China, all countries breathed a sigh of relief as markets picked up.
Every dollar that we collect from those retaliatory tariffs, and we use it to protect our workers.
Canada and the U.S. inched toward a trade war as Trump imposed heavy tariffs.
Above all, what we are doing is we are building Canada strong.
Well, I think we all will be impacted. Like, you can't not impact us.
Canada, Mexico, and China were the first victims of Trump's tariff war. You remember all this propaganda?
I mean, more so people who are trying to build a home, perhaps.
Post the federal elections in Canada, U.S. officials will meet, talk, trade, and tariffs.
But everybody's going to be impacted. It's just ridiculous. And I think Mr. Carney, I feel very confident.
After Trump's tariff U-turn, Canadian PM Carney vows to impose maximum pain on the U.S.
In him that he can manage this.
Well, I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, you know? They were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid. Somebody had to do what we did, and I did a 90-day pause for the people that didn't retaliate, because I told them if you retaliate, we're going to double it. And that's what I did with China, because they did retaliate. A deal's going to be made with China. A deal's going to be made with every one of them. And there'll be fair deals. I just want fair. There will be fair deals for everybody. But they weren't fair to the United States. They were sucking us dry, and you can't do that.
Post the federal elections in Canada, U.S. officials will meet and talk trade and tariffs. Yeah, okay, so you all remember that, right? It never happened. And, you know, just so.
But the series of measures will directly affect millions of Canadians.
This is right after the election.
These tariffs with countermeasures. We are going to protect our workers, and we are going to build the strongest economy in the G7. In a crisis, it's important to come together, and it's essential to act with purpose and with force. And that's what we will do.
Grrr! Tough man, tough man. Still no tariffs. In the meantime,
retaliatory Chinese tariffs are now in effect against billions of dollars in key Canadian exports. The biggest hit will be on canola, a key cash crop on the prairies. China is slapping a 100% tariff on canola oil and related products. It's taking effect with canola prices already low. China is also targeting Canadian seafood, 25% tariffs there that cover 40 products fished on Canadian coasts, including crab and lobster. There's also a 25% tariff on Canadian pork sold to China. The Chinese tariffs are all in retaliation for Canada's 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles. They add to the economic disruption and uncertainty for this country just weeks before more U.S. tariffs are set to hit.
yeah. And the media likes to say, oh, well, they did that because of the Biden administration. That's why they put those tariffs against China, because of the Biden administration. They were forced to do it. No, they weren't. That is a lie. They did it because of this. They sunk billions and billions of your dollars, tax dollars, into a pile of different EV companies so that they could make sure, they wanted to ensure that we followed this new green religion, the green religion. Here it is, right from their website. So, they want 100% zero emission car sales by 2035. I post all the links. This ain't old. This is since after the election. This is what they're running on. By the way, 93,000 jobs in Canada, poof, will be gone. Gone. Yes. So that's why they wanted to try to protect the investments they were making to their shareholders and buddies with your tax dollars to build all of these supposed EV battery plants and car plants. And we're going to make these wicked vans and everybody's going to buy them. And oh, by the way, they're sending them back because they're stranded on the streets in New York and Philadelphia and previous episodes. This is lunacy. This is full-fledged fascism, people. You are not saving the planet by buying an EV. You're going to get stranded. And for all you people who live remote, think carefully. Think very carefully about what's going to happen to you when you can't get a gasoline or a diesel vehicle? What are you going to do on your trap line? What are you going to do when you're trying to drive down crappy roads in a overweight piece of crap that can only go X amount of kilometers and takes hours upon hours to recharge? What are you going to do? Are you going to take an extra car with you and drag it with you so that you can, stop on the side of the road and switch them out and then tow the other vehicle? How do you plan on doing this? Or are you going to do like what I do and everybody I know who's off grid? You always carry 2, 3, 4, 5 jerry cans in the back, or even a slip tank. Because all it takes is that one crappy day, which happens, 20% of the time, where you're not going to make it back. You're going to have to take a detour. What, are you going to freeze to death? What are you going to do? This is just lunacy, people. Absolute lunacy. Let's get back to Carney and his absolute ridiculousness.
Are you imposing anti-dumping tariffs because the U.S. asked you to as part of these
A little uncomfortable there? What's with the cheek grab?
The short answer, no, there was not a request from the United States.
Yes, there was a request from the United States. I didn't have time to go find the video, but it's been brought up. Lutnick, everybody's brought it up. They know Chinese steel is going through Canada. I mean, it was even, I've done it in previous episodes. We're dumping Chinese steel. He had to do it. Obviously, Trump and Lutnick and them have brought it up. Again, just another liberal lie.
But it's a consequence of the U.S. actions. As you know, the U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum are global tariffs. They're not targeted specifically at Canada, but they, of course, affect our steel industries and our workers. And one of the consequences of that effect, or prospective consequences, is that steel from other countries, from third countries, start to come into Canada if we don't protect our industries. So we're setting these quotas. It's a long word, tariff rate quotas, but a quota for the amount of steel that can come in from third countries to limit that amount, to stabilize the market. And to be clear, we will be reviewing the level of those tariff rate quotas as this progresses. It depends on what the United States does, first and foremost with Canada, whether we come to an agreement in the next 30 days, but also what they do with the rest of the world.
This guy's so full of himself.
Next question.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister David Baxter with the Canadian Press. So earlier you were talking about the importance of getting C5 passed. Last night we were hearing that the way this bill is being handled is laying the table out for a potential Idle No More 2.0. Are you prepared for a potential summer of protests, and how do you properly address the concerns raised by a host of Indigenous organizations at this point?
I mean, the first thing is that at the heart of this legislation is Section 35 of our Constitution. At the heart is not just respect for, but full embrace of free, prior, and informed consent. It has to be seen as well in parallel with very major measures that this government is taking to not just support those partnerships, but also to finance equity ownership in these nation-building projects for Indigenous peoples, Indigenous groups, Indigenous right holders.
So, all of you Northern and Indigenous, I'm just warning y'all and my brothers and sisters out there, you guys, if you voted for this party, you screwed yourselves. They don't care. They don't care about you. You think that, oh, this is great because the government's going to come in and they're going to spend money. They're going to give you, they're going to take taxpayers' dollars, and they're going to give it to you as an investment, and then you're going to be a shareholder because Canadian tax dollars are going to make you a shareholder, and this is supposed to be a good thing. Well, it depends. I mean, if you like stealing money, that's a good thing. Here's the fact. 10 to 25 year life expectancy on windmills, unrecyclable. You're going to be the one burying them on your land. What about all of the dead fish? Whales, dolphins, even the crustaceans that lose breeding grounds and for some reason don't want to go anywhere near the acoustic and vibratory troubles that windmills offshore put into the waters, which has already been scientifically proven. You're going to be responsible for it. That's right. This is multi-billion-dollar companies figuring out just how brilliant and how dumb Canadians are, but how brilliant they are. Because there's people out there that think, yeah, this is going to be awesome. We're going to make green hydrogen. Yahoo! And then we're going to mix it with ammonia. And then we're going to ship it with ships powered by diesel because we can't do it by battery. And hydrogen only produces 20% efficiency to another country. Hopefully it doesn't spill because ammonia is worse in the oceans than oil. And then we're going to get a really small percentage of money that'll barely pay for... Wait a minute. What? Yes, that's what you're going to invest in. Well done, North. Well done voting for the Liberals. Well done. Elbows up. Elbows up, people. Elbows up. Ah. Now, let's just hear, one of their own lunatics. Now, this is socialism. Listen carefully. He's coming out because he's fighting this. He's saying, whoa, this Bill C5. And the media's making it go, hey, these Liberals, they're really doing good. They're discussing things between each other to make sure they get this bill right. That's not what's going on. Listen carefully.
What the hell is C5? What's your issue with the bill?
Oh, well, so the goal of the bill is sound, right?
Sure,
we want to build good projects more quickly. Of course we do. And that's the object of the bill. That's a good thing. There are other elements of the bill that are good as well. A streamlined authorization process should be welcomed.
Sure.
The challenge with the bill is straightforward, and there are two related faults. One, it gives unchecked power for the government to designate national interest projects, absent that there are example factors, but there's no specific factors that the government must consult with and consider. They can.
There you go, Indigenous. Elbows up. Well done. Oh, you guys. Wow. You got to quit watching CBC and CTV and all the rest of the global and crap. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. People got to see this, especially up north. Those people are married to propaganda. Their satellites are starting to take off up there. More and more of the rural areas are starting to get away from the force-fed crap of state-funded media and starting to see independence like myself and others. And this is what they need to see. They need to see this, okay? So there's no oversight. They're going to do whatever they want. Whatever they want. Circumventing all of the rules that these people put in place to stop real companies, Canadian companies. They put these rules in so their big corporations outside of Canada can build their green zealot religion, blah, 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 carbon's bad crap. Yeah, but listen carefully. This is a full-fledged socialist who's thinking fascism's good. But wait, how do we really take control? We got to watch out.
Can consult any factor and consider any factor in designating a project. In the hands of a conservative government, I would worry a great deal about the ability of government to designate a national interest project considering any factor at all and not imposing more prescriptive factors for them to consider. The second part of it is...
Wait a minute. So it's good for his party, who's destroyed our country, lost more money than any other government, all other governments combined, has more corruption than all other governments combined, spent more money than all other governments combined, has destroyed the entire fabric of our society. It's good for them, but it's not good for conservatives to have the same power. Do you see how this is a fascist bill? This is a fascist bill, people. All he's concerned about is making sure that nobody else has the power that they want to gift themselves. That is a dictatorship. That is a fascist government. Right from this fascist's mouth.
When you marry that unfettered discretion to designate national interest projects alongside unchecked power to exclude the operation of any law that would otherwise apply to those projects, you have the potential for undermining any number of important protections, including environmental protections. And look, in some cases, I said in the bill, I want to just be clear, where there's a regulation that doesn't make sense, where a regulation doesn't serve the public interest, where a regulation, there's a greater negative cost that is disproportionate to any positive contribution, yeah, we should do away with that rule. I agree with cutting unnecessary red tape to get things done more quickly, but we should be thoughtful and we shouldn't give unchecked power. I trust the Liberal government. I've got friends around the cabinet table. Like I don't think they're gonna.
We know you do, Erskine, because you're a goof just like the rest of them. You're the same Liberal Party. Nothing's changed. You got lipstick on a pig on a new leader who's even worse than the first leader. You hearing what this is? Socialism, people. Like I said, I studied this stuff for decades. This is propaganda through the lips of a socialist. If it's good for him to have the power but not good for somebody else, then it doesn't deserve to be put into law. Period.
Run roughshod over environmental and indigenous rights. This is a 5-year timeline. This is a precedent we're setting. Do I trust Pierre Poilievre government to protect indigenous rights, to protect environmental rights, to make sure they're ensuring proper democratic participation in not only the designation, but the how a law is excluded from applying to a national interest project? Absolutely not, right? So
Okay, well, you know what? I think I had enough about this guy's verbal diarrhea. Let's go to somebody who's actually got brains, who's not a socialist, who is a tribal leader, full-fledged full-fledged native, full-fledged indigenous, who's done more for not only the Canadian taxpayers, but for every single nation that he helped and pushed to get a natural gas pipeline to the shores of BC, taking all of those people out of poverty and away from even the idea of having to deal with the Liberal Indian Act and all of these other segregated, unequal laws, foot on their head, beg for money. No. We're going to give you drinking water. Yeah. Next century, we'll blame the Conservatives for doing it. Oh, no, don't worry about housing. No, we're going to give you brand new housing. And no, that didn't happen either. But don't worry. Oh, no, Brookfield owns a company. You're going to get your mini houses. Maybe, just maybe. Let's just hear it from a real leader. I'm a huge fan. Here he is, Eli Ross.
C5, you had a lot to say about that bill in the House.
Yeah.
What changes would you like to see? Or what are your concerns or worries?
Oh, to be honest, after doing this for 20 years, we didn't really need Bill C5. It's my opinion that all the existing legislation, policies, regulations are already there. I don't think this government actually realized that. And so whether you're talking about provincial jurisdiction or rights of title, Aboriginal rights of title, I think this government should have sat down and looked at what was already on the books.
And do you think that this weakens or disrespects Indigenous rights? Do you think that this compromises a combination of the governments and itself?
Well, the bill is so vague. I mean, we're talking about the second part of the bill, right? We're not really talking about the first part of the bill.
Yes.
So it's so vague, and you can interpret it in so many different ways. There's no definition. And so the First Nations have a valid complaint. Even the provinces, in that matter, have a valid complaint that the federal government is basically using some sort of emergency powers to overstep the jurisdiction of the provinces. And this is all very detailed in the legislation already in terms of provincial environmental assessments versus federal environmental assessments.
Is there any issues with the timeline the government's trying to pass this bill in?
Well, the government's saying that they were given this mandate by the Canadian people to do something in terms of what was happening with the tariffs coming from the United States. Quite interesting, they didn't mention any tariffs coming from China on agricultural products, for example.
I did.
So it sounds to me like this is the only option that they could come up with, but I think the real concern is the secrecy in terms of the details. There's no details. But the government has already contradicted its own objectives by saying they would not override provincial jurisdiction, and they would not approve anything without First Nation consent. So the bill is basically useless now.
Useless.
Thank you, sir.
So why bother even having the bill? Because Carney needs to make sure he goes through so he gets his investors paid. He's been working in the back room, in the shadows, in the dark, in the night, helping guide this Liberal Party to put all these rules and legislation. Yeah, because it's going to help. And who's it going to help? Well, it's going to help him. Canada's highest office scrambles to manage all of Carney's conflicts of interest. The former central banker turned prime minister faces controversy over his business ties as officials attempt to address conflicts of interest with concerns over ethical safeguards for recent legislation fast-tracking industrial projects. So Prime Minister Mark Carney's private business ties are under scrutiny as federal officials scramble to manage all of the conflicts linked to his and his wife's financial interests. Deputy Privy Council Clerk Christine Fox revealed this effort during recent testimony, admitting close collaboration with the PM's office to address Carney's declared conflicts as reported by Blacklocks. Details, however, remain scarce. No surprise, it's the Liberal Party. They're not a Democratic Party. They're a socialist party. They're now a fascist party. They don't want the truth out. They don't believe in transparency. They don't think the taxpayer should have any idea on what they're doing. No, that's not good. How do they make money? How do they steal and launder money if Canadians know what they're actually doing? Can't have that. Before securing the Liberal leadership on January 15th, Carney held a high-profile roles in the Bloomberg LP, Goldman Sachs, Brookfield Asset Management, and Stripe.com. His wife Diana served as senior advisor for the Eurasia Group and Terramera Incorporated, the latter receiving $3.2 million in your taxpayer agricultural grants. Ching ching. Mark Carney's role as the chair of Brookfield Asset Management raises serious financial questions, especially since he held a $9.8 million in stock options. By the way, I believe that's up to $13 million already just from him getting elected, because they're all like, ooh, yeah, baby, we're going to be building all these projects that we're all invested in and Carney's invested in, and screw the Canadian taxpayer. Screw Canada. Nobody cares. They don't care. At the Commons Transport Committee, Conservative MP Shannon Stubbs pressed Cabinet on Bill C-5, which allows Carney's team to fast-track industrial projects in the national interest. When Stubbs inquired about ethical safeguards for the PM, silence followed. Intergovernmental Affairs Minister Dominic LeBlanc, deflected, citing the Ethics Commissioner, and Fox reiterated that conflicts are being managed. They're being managed. I just wanted to say quite clearly that the Privy Council office, we are working very closely with the Prime Minister's office to manage all of the conflicts that he has declared, and that is operationalized within communications between the Privy Council and the Prime Minister's office, she said. That would relate to anything including this bill. Really? Really? You don't even have to name off anything these companies own. Just the fact that he's invested and he owns shares in these companies to the tune of $8 and some change million, I'd say he's in conflict of interest. So would anybody with half a brain. Where am I here? So Carney's response to questions about his investments have been dismissive. On March 17th, he told reporters, "I'm complying with the rules," brushing off concerns with "look inside yourself." He accused journalists of assuming conflict and ill will, framing his private sector exit as a sacrifice for Canada. "Your line of questioning is trying to invent new rules," he snapped. Yeah, Canada deserves better, people. Unbelievable. This shit, it just gets worse and worse and worse.
I'll ask you about the conflict in the Middle East and whether or not you support the U.S. directly striking Iran in the goal of diminishing their nuclear capacity.
And say the following, which is that the prospect, in any sense of that word, of Iran having a nuclear weapon is fundamentally destabilizing to peace in the Middle East and broader peace and stability in the world. We support, at first point. Secondly, we absolutely support and stand by Israel and in its right to defend itself and to protect itself. We join others in looking for a resolution of this crisis that ensures that there is not a nuclear weapon or nuclear capacity in Iran, that ensures the safety and stability of all countries, Israel included, in the region, and that leads to broader peace or prospect of broader peace in the Middle East. And I'll draw attention to the G7 statement agreed by all G7 leaders that the resolution of this crisis should be accompanied by a ceasefire in Gaza. Thank you very much.
Right. Just a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, this is from Benjamin Netanyahu himself. This shows you how he feels about Carney, our socialist fascist government. And I'll read it to you, but I think it's always so much better hearing it in his own words. I say to President Macron, Prime Minister Carney, and Mr. and Minister Starmer, when mass murderers, rapists, baby killers, and kidnappers thank you, you're on the wrong side of history.
You won't be surprised to learn that Hamas thanked President Macron and Prime Minister Starmer and Carney for demanding that Israel end its war in Gaza immediately. Hamas was right to thank them, because by issuing their demand, replete with a threat of sanctions against Israel, not Hamas, these three leaders effectively said they want Hamas to remain in power. They want Israel to stand down and accept that Hamas's army of mass murderers will survive, rebuild, and repeat the October 7th massacre again and again and again, because that's what Hamas has vowed to do. I say to President Macron, Prime Minister Carney, and Prime Minister Starmer, when mass murderers, rapists, baby killers, and kidnappers thank you, you're on the wrong side of justice. You're on the wrong side of humanity. And you're on the wrong side of history.
Thank you.
Now, these leaders may think that they're advancing peace.
Thank you.
They're not. They're emboldening Hamas to continue fighting forever. And they give them hope to establish a second Palestinian state from which Hamas will again seek to destroy the Jewish state. And mind you, it's not going to be a state free of Hamas. When you establish a Palestinian state, we've seen it. The radicals take over. Iran sends them in and they take over. So don't give us this talk. It'll be a peaceful Palestinian state. It won't be. But the hypocrisy doesn't stop there. These and other leaders have bought into Hamas's propaganda that says Israel is starving Palestinian children. And not only is Hamas putting out this lie, a few days ago, a top UN official said...
I showed footage right from Palestinians. And for those of you who are new subscribers, you probably don't know this as well. My longtime subscribers know this. I had a couple really, really close friends who were from Palestine, who went back over a decade ago when there was a scuffle going on to get their families out. They told me all about Hamas. One of them showed me his body on what Hamas had done to him in order to brainwash him to hate Jews. And you want to see an incredible individual to have suffered the years of torture and agony that they put on him, and for him to flee and come out of it a hero, understanding the evils that had taken over Palestine, and be a true lover of humanity and every race and religion. He carried no burden, no hate, no falsehoods, no lies about what was going on between the Jews and the Palestinians. He was a true, proud Muslim. As they like to say, they're inexplicably linked. And if you read anything about the Bible, I'll just throw out the name of Abraham. Previous episodes, I went through all of this and exposed the lies that our media pushes, and how the fact that you can take an organization as evil as Hamas and you can actually say that what they're saying, you even repeat what they're saying, that's a better way to put it. How can you even report anything that an organization as evil as Hamas says with a grain of salt? I've proven and I've shown the footage, and I get censored, and I'm still getting censored. I get censored all the time. Why? Because I say certain bad words and I play that type. Those are bad words because they don't want you to know the truth. So if they stop you from saying the words, if they can stop me from saying those words, or even showing clips that those people are saying those words, even if it's coming from voted politicians, our police, the RCMP, it don't matter. They don't want you to get the truth. Sorry, just the facts. They don't want it. But they're allowed to put on their propaganda what Hamas is telling people. And like I said, the tunnels underneath hospitals, I've shown it. I've shown the tunnels. I've shown them wide open. I showed them pulling out rotten corpses of ex-Hamas leaders that were bombed in there because they couldn't get out because they leveled the damn hospital when they couldn't find the entrances. They were buried. They were hidden so well. And then after they went around and they did radar, they found them. They dug a great big hole. They found the tunnels, and now they found out where they were up into the hospitals. This goes the same thing for the schools. They use their own people for shields. These people are evil. And when it comes to the food, I've exposed all of that as well. I've shown Hamas shooting their own people, stealing the food and hiding it in factories. I've even proven that the media has turned around and lied, saying that it was a UN, especially this one big one, it was a UN deposit. It was where they were storing food in Gaza. But yet I had to show you for 3 weeks prior, and everything up until all of a sudden people like me were releasing this information, they were saying there was zero food in there. UN couldn't get a single kernel of a grain of rice in there. But yet they had these warehouses right full of food. So propaganda, lies. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. You got to get the word out. People need to see it. And I will watch, like when I say the terrorists word, I will do stuff like that. But for the most part, I'm going to let Netanyahu speak his piece. I'm going to make sure all my viewers don't get this baby pat on the back for a little bit of a burp of reality when the whole time the diaper's full of crap. It's just enough with the lies. That's why I started the channel. Anyways, you guys, I hope you enjoyed the broadcast. If you did, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. But if you are, punch that notification bell so you don't miss any future episodes. Until the next time, I'm Alias the Guy. You've been watching Canadian Citizen Journal. Stay informed.